So we finally got in chapter 262 of JJK, with it ending with a pretty crazy cliffhanger implying that Rika is gonna eventually jump in to fight alongside Yuta. And since we know that Yuta is already in Gojo's body, this ponders the question of, will this be enough to defeat Sukuna in the end? Can Yuta become what he needs to be in order to defeat Sukuna? And will he inevitably be able to save everyone in the end? This is a pretty difficult question, so let's get into the optics of it. From the way that it's looking in the recent chapter, Sukuna is already overpowering Yuta with him landing multiple blows on him, which led Rika to start worrying at the end of the chapter in the first place. It's also worth noting that Sukuna's domain is becoming even stronger by the minute. It's not an open domain anymore, and now he's able to enclose Malevolent Shrine, which is pretty much gonna make it harder for Yuta, even harder than when Gojo had to fight Sukuna. This is a way more complex fight. We're not dealing with Maguna and we're not dealing with Maharaga. We're dealing with a prime Sukuna that has all of his curse techniques that he used back in the Heian era. With that experience, it will probably be enough for him to already start gaining momentum like we see here. Notorious leaker Mayamura has gone on record to say that Yuta was practicing with Gojo's barrier techniques before he started fighting Sukuna. This is pretty good news, because one of the worries we had going into this fight is whether or not Yuta will be able to use Gojo's domain correctly, and if his lack of experience will ultimately lead to his demise. Him refining the barrier techniques is also really smart because of the time limit that he has while he's in Gojo's body. That time limit being literally 5 minutes. So the stakes are high for Yuta, and we've already pretty much established this. Adding more to this point, it's directly stated in the fanbook that when you use this body swap technique, that you will have the experience and memories of the person you're swapping into, giving Yuta a very big advantage over Sukuna. Now let's go into what Rika contributes to the fight as a whole. Ever since JJK started, we were introduced to Rika as the Queen of Curses, pretty much the opposite to what Sukuna would be, which is the King of Curses. Now she has surely lived up to this name, with her being a big part as to why Yuta was able to defeat Suguru Geto in Volume 0, and also as to why he was able to defeat Ryu in the Culling game. And there's one thing we know for certain now, she's not someone to play around with. 262 pretty much tells us that the Rika that's going to be fighting alongside Yuta in the future chapters is a fully manifested Rika, pretty much the strongest Rika we've ever seen. Depending on how much Sukuna's struggling against Yuta while he's fighting in Gojo's body, adding Rika to the fold can make this fight so difficult for Sukuna to the point where Yuta might be able to win this thing. Another thing worth noting is how long Malevolent Shrine as a domain lasts. It only lasts for a mere 99 seconds, and if Yuta can make Sukuna struggle to a point to where it runs out, it gives Rika the perfect opening. It already seems as if Yuta is very proficient in using Infinite Void despite him just getting in the body, which is a good sign already. This chapter makes Yuta's plan pretty clear. Within the 3 minutes that he's in Gojo's body, he's gonna try to damage Sukuna to the point that he can't use Malevolent Shrine. Now here's another bad sign that Sukuna might lose this fight. It's simply because of his overconfidence and him trying to take out everyone at once. Let me go more in depth with it. In 262, when Yuta's finished explaining his plan, we get to see Sukuna's plan, and he says he doesn't need 3 minutes. His whole plan is to destroy Unlimited Void and expand his range to where he'll be able to kill everyone with his domain. This level of arrogance might ultimately lead him to lose. Another thing that we learned in 262 is how Sukuna is able to bypass infinity with his domain amplification. Now this is pretty bad news for Yuta, because when Gojo was fighting against Sukuna, one thing that gave him the upper hand was infinity, and how much trouble it caused Sukuna at the beginning of the fight. And with Sukuna's thousands of years of experience, plus him already fighting Gojo, it could lead to a tide turn, which makes this kind of hard to call. But we do know that it only takes Malevolent Shrine about 2 to 3 minutes to crumble Unlimited Void. So if Sukuna can do that, I think that he could win very easily against Yuta. But I feel like one disadvantage Sukuna's at is that his domain and him himself has taken a lot of damage from fighting pretty much like the whole cast at this point. So we don't know what shape his domain is in. It could be in very bad shape. And I think that if Yuta can exploit that well, he can win as well. I mean, this man Sukuna had Ino and all these other people like hitting him and just letting them do that, even though these are some of the weakest characters, but whatever. Even Kusakabe was getting a little flow. Now, let me stop. But enough of me talking. I decided, since You know, I'm kind of unsure about this whole thing. Maybe I should bring some friends in and ask what they think about this and whether or not they think Yuta can beat Sukuna. Because to be honest, I really don't know. Like, this is one of the hardest things to call because we're dealing with a weakened Sukuna, but we're also dealing with a very different Yuta. I don't know how to explain it. So, introduce yourself. Who am I here with?
Hi, I'm Gizbob. Avid JJK scaler, avid JJK reader.
And Mr. Gizbob, what do you think about the new chapter?
Pretty disappointed with the length of the chapter as a whole, but there is a little bit of content in there to sort of dissect, so could have been worse.
Okay, and how do you feel like this fight is going? Do you think that Yuta is winning right now?
It's looking horrendous for Yuta right now. It is looking god awful. He came in with a lot of confidence, so I had high hopes initially, but he is looking lost, and we're only 3-4 pages into the fight. It is not looking good
we're only
whatsoever.
7 pages into the fight as a whole. You know,
yeah, it's it's pretty awful. I feel like it's hard to pass judgment this early, but with the way things are going right now, I don't see Yuta, at least in his current state, without pulling out anything from his bag that he hasn't yet, being able to hang with Sukuna for those 3 minutes, especially dealing any type of damage that's gonna cause Sukuna to close his domain or anything like that.
And we're dealing with a more refined malevolent shrine, like a stronger version, right?
Yeah, I mean, Sukuna's already had practice against the exact same arsenal, but from a much better user.
Yeah. So then how do you feel about you know, implications in the chapter, or not even implications in the chapter, but statements on the side from Gege, like pretty much implying that Yuta was practicing the barrier techniques beforehand?
I mean, I think it's a good indicator that he still has more to show. I don't think this is the extent of what he's learned from practicing in Gojo's body, using the Limitless, working on his barrier techniques, all that sort of stuff. I'm sure he has a lot more in his bag, or at least something else that'll make the fight a lot more competitive, but I don't know. With what he's showing right now, it seems like something Sukuna can handle relatively easily.
Okay, and so you're saying right now Sukuna is gonna take this, pretty much?
Yeah, I mean, I could see Yuta putting in some work, but I just don't see him. I don't see him clutching it up, unfortunately.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Gizbob, for showing up for the video, man.
Absolutely, Auden. Thank you for having me, man.
Anything else you would like to say?
I think that just about covers it. I mean, not too many pages to look at here.
Okay, so who am I here with today?
It's your boy Mookie. What's going on?
Okay, so Mookie, you know, 7 pages we got from Gege. How are we feeling?
I mean, probably shouldn't have dropped it if it was just 7 pages. Could have waited like a whole nother month, if anything else. It'd be the first time.
How do you feel about JJK right now as like a manga?
I think it's definitely getting hate. It's not as hyped as it was like around a year ago for sure, but it's still pretty good. I think like the whole Sukuna cycle thing is just done from like fans.
Okay. So then who do you think is going to win this fight? Yuta or Sukuna?
So I think from what we're seeing right now, Sukuna has the edge for sure. But if Yuta does manage to like fully utilize Gojo's body, then he literally can't win. Or sorry, you can't lose.
Okay.
If anything, this is supporting the whole, are you the strongest because you're Gojo, or you Gojo because you're strongest? Because we see Yuta, who's, you know, like an ultra prodigy, he can't utilize Gojo's body well. Like, and that makes sense to me because Gojo's the only one who can use his body. You know what I mean? Like he's Satoru Gojo.
Okay, so is there anything else you would like to say about the most recent chapter?
The hate for it, I don't really see it besides, I guess, like the page length maybe because it was a week break, but otherwise it's okay.
Go ahead, introduce yourself.
I am Ataru and I'm British. And that's it. So, mid-chapter 262 opened with a, in quotations, high-stakes clash between Yuta and Sukuna. Yuta, yeah, I don't know how you, I'm awkward, Auden. What do you want me to do, seriously?